The last thing we're going to do is something rather, I think it's unique. It's actually a new stewardship award category that we decided to create. And we wanted to create it really in memory of Lowell Klessig and the work that he did for this partnership. People who know Lowell and worked with him know that he wasn't just sort of the hardcore science guy. He was someone who really wanted to see many, many different sides of every issue and wanted people to consider things in very interdisciplinary ways. He was always very critical of people who got stuck into their silos, whether it was a fisheries scientist or a social scientist or a limnologist. His advocacy was that we need to transcend these different divisions. We need to incorporate different perspectives in all that we do. And I think it's because of that belief that he held that we have this type of convention, that we have the types of partnership that we have today. This isn't just a lake science gathering. As you probably perceive now, this is a social gathering. This is people getting together, reaffirming each other, helping each other out, and supporting each other. So what kind of award could you give to recognize Lowell? And so what we thought is that this is a type of award that we're probably only going to give once in a while. And it's only going to be awarded when in our work, whether it's your work as lake organizations, our work in education and extension, or the department's work in natural resource management and science, when we come across people who are just remarkable, people who stand out, people who sort of embody Lowell's passion for natural resources. So we're lucky to find someone like that, and I don't know how often we're going to find these people, but whenever we do, I think it's important that we recognize them and that we call them up and we elevate their work. This is true for the work of Ben Thwaits and the work that he's been doing with Northwest Passage, and I think it's very fitting that we give this award to Ben Thwaits and the In a New Light program. This is the Klessig Memorial Prize for 2015. So I'd like to bring Ben up to the stage, and he's going to give a short presentation and then receive this award. Thank you, Ben.
Thank you very much, Eric, and thank you very much to the Wisconsin Lakes Partnership. I tell you, it's just an incredible honor for my program to be associated with Lowell Klessig's name in any way. For the last few weeks, I've been kind of diving into a lot of the things that he's written. And it became clear to me very quickly that Lowell was a visionary. Almost more of a shaman, as much as shaman, as an educator and a scientist, because what he was doing through his writing and through his outreach is he was helping us define the very nature of our connection to nature. And most importantly, he understood that conservation was about so much more than natural resources. He understood that connecting to our natural places is about a bond. It's about connecting to these places at the deepest part of our soul, and that, in fact, that emotional connection, that bond, is essential to environmental conservation. So Aldo Leopold was another person who understood this idea, and Leopold writes about how conservation requires a sense of, quote, interdependence and broad sense of community. And Lowell Klessig went on and expanded on that when he said, quote, "Few words have as positive a connotation as stewardship. However, stewardship is not enough. It will not provide lakes or any other part of nature with enough love and respect. The lake steward is protecting the lake for the benefit of present and future generations of humans. That's a good start, but it is a woefully inadequate paradigm because it still treats nature as a commodity to be managed for wise human use. A paradigm shift from stewardship to interdependence and a broad sense of community is required for families, communities, and societies to be sustainable. Stewardship is not enough." It's interesting, isn't it? Kind of provocative. But I happen to agree with that idea with every part of my being. The narrative is not just about what we can do to protect nature. That's only half the story. it's also about what nature can do for us. It's about symbiosis. It's about that bond. And I feel very lucky that every day at work I get to go and be part of forming that bond. So I work for an organization called Northwest Passage. It's a nonprofit mental health organization. It's a residential treatment facility up in the northwest corner of the state. And teens from around the country who are struggling with really significant mental health issues come into our service. And we work with over 350 kids a year. And we literally see it all, from severe depression to anxiety to addiction to even emerging bipolar disorder. The young men and women who come to us are on the brink. They stay with us for an average of 90 days, and our mission is ultimately to help them reframe their internal narrative through a lens of strength and to ultimately help them find a sense of hope in their lives and a sense of hope in the lives of their families as well. So it was at this organization that I began working about 6 years ago, after first doing work as an aquatic ecologist and later as a nature photographer. And the nature photography thing was a blast. That was going great until my wife sits me down one day and announces we're expecting our first child, and in the same breath says, "And now, honey, it's time to get a real job." So I opened up the classifieds and I found a job as a teacher here at Northwest Passage, and I dove in. But being a nature photographer was still, a really, really key piece of who I am. And so I was always looking for ways to get nature photography into my classroom. And I just sort of on a whim applied for a little grant and got a grant to get some cameras. And so we started on a very small, very informal scale, just once a week, getting the guys out doing some nature photography. But very quickly, something started to happen. And the young men I was working with started investing in their photography far more than I'd seen in any other school program. And as a result, their photos were astonishing. They started producing a level of photograph that, was pretty much comparable to a professional in almost every way. And then we started showing their work. We're asked to show their work at venues all around the nation, big exhibits. We're even featured on PBS NewsHour at one point. And those accolades, by the way, those are transformative in their own right. So in so many cases, these were young people who have never been recognized for anything positive in their lives. They've only been recognized for the mistakes that they've made. But now here they are being celebrated. But beyond those accolades, we started to see some really profound behavioral transformations as well. Everything from increased focus and attention span to improved peer interactions and they started to use their photos as ways through which they can understand their struggles and their hopes and their dreams. And it got to a point where the therapeutic benefits were so obvious that my organization said, well, we want every single kid who comes through Northwest Passage now to do nature photography. And so now we do that with over 350 kids a year. But last year, things started to get interesting. And it started when Dr. Tobin Lefrancois, who is in the audience here, he's a research diver and aquatic ecologist with Northland College, called me up one day and said, "So Ben, you think we can take in a new light underwater?" And I said, "I don't know, let's give it a try." And so we applied for a little grant with the National Park Service, and we dove in. I can't express enough how much I didn't know what I was doing when this project started. I had never done underwater photography in my life. The one thing I knew, and that the most important thing to know for this kind of project, is that we were safe, because Tobin is a border collie who is constantly doing head counting and constantly corralling us and keeping us safe. And we also had Pete Ducos, who's also here. He's a staff member at Northwest Passage, who's also an experienced diver who was there on every excursion out in the St. Croix and Namakagon rivers. But beyond the safety, it was all an experiment. And the program was really in the hands of the 15 or so young men who were in our first group of participants, and 2 of them are sitting here with us tonight, Jaden and Tony. This was really their project. They were taking the lead. So first they paved the artistic path of this project. Our photography was centered in the St. Croix and Namakagon rivers, which, if you've ever been there, are absolutely astonishingly beautiful places. But from a photography perspective, these are fast water, dark rivers. And so a lot of what was known about underwater photography kind of went out the window, and we had to sort of reinvent the wheel. And it was in their hands to invent the techniques that go into creating stunning photographs. And I hold to this day that Jaden here in the audience, that Jaden is one of North America's preeminent muscle photographers. This guy had a knack for it, and he could create pictures like this. You have no idea how challenging that picture is to create, because first of all, the minute you get within 2 to 3 feet of a muscle, closes right up. So how do you get that? I'm not going to reveal all of Jaden's secrets right now, but maybe if you bribe him afterwards or something, he might let you in on some secrets. But we ended up creating really the first definitive collection of underwater photos of the St. Croix and Namakagon rivers that have ever been created. No one had really ever done it before. They just assumed it was too difficult. But we have this collection of astonishing photos. And if you haven't been down to the Woodland Room over on the other end of the hall, you should go check them out. So second, they paved the educational path of this project. So our lessons were driven by their questions. And Tony, who is here with us, was one of the most curious human beings I've ever met. And this guy would ask questions that literally would, just knocked our socks off, and would compare, like, are better questions than most graduate students would ask. But their learning was driven by that authentic sense of wonder and awe and fascination. My guess is if you ask them, that they would probably say they didn't even realize they were learning at the time. But they came back with a really deep knowledge of aquatic sciences. That really is the best way to learn. And finally, these guys showed us the power of water to soothe and to calm and to restore. It became so apparent very, very quickly that the minute the team got into the water, that their brains clicked into a different mode, and they became very different people than they were out of the water. They became calm and centered and relaxed, and for lack of a better word, they became more themselves. And I felt very lucky that every week I got to go out with these guys, that I would get to see the best sides of them. But something very, very deep inside was happening when we were in the water. So there's a rapidly growing body of literature out there that's demonstrating the positive kind of psychological and physiological aspects of time in nature. A lot of peer-reviewed research is coming out showing the power of nature to enhance our sense of well-being and reduce stress and increase our creativity and things like that. But there's a much smaller little subset that's emerging showing the power of water to have these same kind of deep psychological impacts on us. It was starting back in the 1960s that a scientist named Scholander kind of first started to elucidate that water had a profound impact on us deep inside, on our physiology even. And he found this really, really cool effect, which is if you just put your head underwater, all you do is put your head underwater, and it elicits this huge cascade of physiological responses through all systems, through all organ systems of the body. It's called the mammalian dive reflex. And Scholander more dramatically and maybe aptly called it the master switch of life. But basically what it does is it changes your circulation. It changes the way your body works to be better suited to be in the water. And so you'll see people like free divers who can dive down, hundreds of feet, able to just really harness that master switch of life to be able to really accomplish these superhuman things. But we know that being in the water affects us very deeply. and it would even indicate that we're made for the water. Other studies are coming out too. So for example, one fun kind of simple study showed that when you show pictures of nature with varying degrees of water in them, like different amounts of water in each picture, and you ask people to rank the pictures from their least favorite to their favorite, almost universally people rank the pictures with more water as more favorable. So the more water, the better, and how they we just like water. There's another recent study that came out linking outdoor recreation in water to reduced PTSD levels in returning veterans. So these studies are still coming out. This field is still in its infancy, and this link is still being established. But, everyone sitting here, we don't need peer-reviewed research to know that water has a really profound impact on us, that water makes us feel good. However, it's really the young men in the program that can articulate that effect better than anyone I've ever seen. And so I'd like to actually show you a little video where they share some of their thoughts about what water does for us. Here you go.
It makes me feel like I am in a different world and that I'm just untouchable for the time being. I feel relaxed and spiritually with the world and my surroundings.
Like, it'll make you just stop what you're thinking about and think about other things.
It's peaceful, because I don't have to worry about anything. All I gotta worry about is just what's under there. I don't have to worry about any problems I'm having, just very mindful when I'm doing
Just the environment around you is a whole different world. You gotta pay attention so you don't miss anything.
I also feel that there is another power that is stronger than me, and that's Mother Nature.
I would say when I'm in the water, I feel very calm. You're very focused, I would say.
Makes you feel calm and relaxed. When I'm swimming in the water, just relaxing, looking at all the fish swimming around. I don't know, just hard to explain.
I don't like being underwater. I love being underwater.
it. My favorite part about the underwater photography would have to be the mussels. I love the mussels.
There can be about 1,000 bugs around you at all times. It's just super cool.
I think favorite things would be the animals.
I just think getting away from everything, and then you're just worried about getting the pictures and getting good shots and seeing everything that's under there. It's just, you don't have to worry about anything else. Everything else can be put aside for the moment, and you can just focus on what's under the water.
It's like you're just floating around in space, completely relaxed, just not worrying about anything, just worrying about yourself.
If you are, focused, you're trying to find the stuff. You're curious, like a cat.
When I'm doing nature photography, I am focused on the pictures, but it's not the same. I don't know why, but there's more to take in underwater, because no one ever sees that. I've never seen it. Underwater, it's cool. It's a whole nother world, I think.
There's more stuff to explore that hasn't been explored before. It's all been studied, they know what the species are, but they haven't seen that one spot no one else has. Or they haven't seen that one spot and it changes all the time, so even if someone did, they still didn't see the same thing I just seen.
And just relaxing, I don't know, it's just really interesting to me.
I just forget about everything. If I'm mad and I go on the trip, I'll come back and I'll be fine. It helps. It's definitely therapeutic.
So, as we all know, water heals. It reminds us who we are, it brings out the best in us as it did for the young men sitting here. And it makes us feel alive. And I think there's a lot of ways to characterize struggles with mental health. But anyone who's been through them knows that I think when you're going through a mental health challenge, you feel a little less connected, a little less alive, a little less connected to that gift of existence. But being near water helps us reconnect to that. It's that sense of wonder and awe and fascination and appreciation. And it's from that place of wonder and awe and appreciation, that's where that bond is formed. That bond, that sense of connectedness, that's ultimately going to be what saves our lakes, what saves nature, and maybe even in the long run, what saves humanity. All of you here are here tonight because you have a very special bond. You feel that bond with Wisconsin's lakes. And I challenge all of you to begin, to the greatest extent you can, that's possible, creating programming, starting initiatives that foster new, strong bonds between people and their lakes. In parallel with stewardship projects, just try to create experiences where people can feel that sense of awe and wonder and connection, where they can heal, where they can have fun. Use your bond as your guide. Remember how your bond was formed as a child and use that very special knowledge to help design experiences for others. Because when we can facilitate that experience of bonding, that's when we transcend stewardship. That's when we instead build that sense of interdependence and the broad sense of community that Lowell Klessig challenged us all to do. Thank you very much.
So I'm tremendously honored to recognize Ben and In a New Light with his 2015 Wisconsin Lakes Stewardship Award. Thank you, Ben.
And I would in turn like to pass it on to the guys because they're really the ones who made all of this possible. So here you go, guys. And I also have a picture that each of them took. This is something special for them to take home. So there you go. Hold that up. Yeah. There you go. All right. Thank you so much. Yeah.